ready to start this thing a little early. Guys ready to start this thing a little early? I'm ready to start this thing a little early. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking Jets with Tigo. My name is Tigo, and we have a lot of things to talk about. But before we get into the conversation, before we get into all of the things that we're going to talk about, how does the Aaron Rodgers trade impact the draft? Who won the Aaron Rodgers trade? So on and so forth. And before we even get to your guys' comments, which I think tonight's going to be a blast, let's have a couple of conversations. The first thing I want to say is obviously that there's this narrative that's been going around. The trade has maybe been live for like 2 hours, but there's been this thing of someone trying to find out who won the trade. And the reality is everyone won the trade. There isn't this, the Green Bay Packers won, or the New York Jets won, or no. Guys, not every situation needs to walk away with a winner and a loser. I had this, and I made this comment in a different video, that the general managers in the NFL are a fraternity, and no one is ultimately trying to screw anybody else over. They're trying to make a trade that ultimately feels good for everybody, and that's what this was coming down to. There's been this thing of, oh, the Jets paid too much. If they would have waited, the Green Bay Packers would have gotten desperate. That same, dude, this is a double-edged sword. The same knife that you would be using to stab Packers fans with, that would imply that, but that you would be using to stab the Packers with to say, oh, you're getting desperate, is going right into you as well. The New York Jets did not have another option outside of Aaron Rodgers. This trade is exactly what we all expected the trade to be. Did I like that we pick swapped first? No, I didn't. I didn't think we needed to do that. But if you look at it, did the pick swaps in the first ultimately net us that 5th round pick? Because remember, we also pick swapped their 5th and our 6th. So we were able to move up like 36 or 34, 30 something spots. I think it's 38 spots. 30 something spots in the later part of the draft, where we know is where the talent is in this draft. Yeah, did I want to give up 42? No, I didn't. I would have rather them give up 43. But we still have our 2nd round pick. In the end, we're still going to be able to do exactly what we wanted to do in this year's draft. And we're not giving up a ton of stuff in next year's draft. The reality is that with Aaron Rodgers, and it's essentially a 1st round pick next year. The reality is that with Aaron Rodgers on this football team, we are insanely competitive. If you add Aaron Rodgers from last year, like if you add Aaron Rodgers to the team that we have last year, there is a legitimate argument that the New York Jets could have been a 14-win team. We had six games that were 1-score games. That would put us from 7 and 10, right, to 13 and 5. No, 13 and 4. And you're telling me that we couldn't win the Bengals game? You're telling me that with Aaron Rodgers, we can't win the Ravens game at the beginning of the year? You're telling me we don't beat the Patriots twice if we have Aaron Rodgers? The reality is that this does have a little bit of a maybe Woody Johnson said, hey, I want this done before the draft. But ultimately, this isn't a bad deal. This is an excellent deal when you look at it. Spreading the cost of the Super Bowl, of the picks across 2 years, and still giving us the ability to go and get players in this year's draft that are going to help this team, and not giving up a bunch of stuff in 2024 is the big thing. For me, we all know that the 2024 NFL draft is going to be by far and away better than the 2023 one. And only having to give up 1 pick in 2024, to me, is a home run of a pick. I really, really like this trade compensation. Again, I don't love it, but I do like what we gave up, and it makes a ton of sense with what we gave up. Let's say hi to some people in the chat. Xavier Garcia, let's go! I totally agree with you. JJ, I'm going to be depressed if the top 4 tackles are all gone by 15. Decent chance that happens now. There was always, JJ, there was always a chance that all of the tackles were to be gone by 13. People are failing to realize that the only position group in this draft class that needs to have a run on them early is the offensive tackle, and probably wide receiver, right? And that's why they're going to go earlier than later. This draft class is not good, but when you look at the value of tackles, there's 5 tackles that can come in and start. Maybe 6, depending on what you believe in DeJuan Jones. That's going to make the value of these offensive tackles go up. We can see an offensive tackle go as early as 3. And that's a real thing. There was a report that came out today that the Arizona Cardinals might take Paris Johnson Jr. at 3. That Kyler Murray informed the team that he really likes Paris Johnson and that he would have liked to bring him in. Now, let's say he doesn't go. There was always a chance that Darnell Wright could have been the first tackle taken off the board as well. If you look at the Chicago Bears need a right tackle, and Darnell Wright has all of the makings and the fixings to be a pick at 9. Look at Seattle. If Seattle looks at this edge class like the rest of us look at this edge class, which is insanely deep, there are 16 guys that aren't that far apart from each other when you really look at this draft class. What happens if Seattle wants to invest in the interior of the offensive line and get the best guard in this draft in Peter Skoronski? There's another one gone, so there you go. Paris Johnson's gone at 3. Peter Skoronski's gone at 5. The Bears will probably take an offensive lineman. There goes Darnell Wright, and then boom, Broderick Jones to the Tennessee Titans. That was always an option with how little or how hard the draft class falls. Now, do I love dropping back? No, I don't. And that just puts another team in front of us that could take a tackle in the New England Patriots. But I'm not that worried. I think that we'll walk away with a player that we're all comfortable with at 15, sorry. But I feel really confident in five offensive tackles being taken at 13. I still feel comfortable with all 5 being taken at 15. I would take any one of Peter Skoronski, Broderick Jones, Paris Johnson Jr., Darnell Wright, and even Anton Harrison. I think that they're all phenomenal players, and I think that they would all be good gets for this team. And the idea that all 5 are gone by 15 is, I think, a little bit of a stretch, but I don't love the idea of, one, putting the Packers in front of the Jets at 13, because what happens if Jackson Smith-Njigba goes to the Houston Texans at 12? Well, now 13 might go for sale. I don't love the fact that New England is in front of the New York Jets. Honestly, I'm hoping that they go edge, and I'm hoping that they go that direction, or that they take, or maybe that one of the corners fall, or that they've fallen in love with a guy like a Deonte Banks. Because, again, do the New England Patriots need a tackle? Yeah, but they have other needs as well. So, again, we have to wait and see. There's a lot of possibility that any of these guys make it. Patrick Husk, what's up, Tigo? Does this mean Wright could be the target at 15? I think Wright was the target at 13. I think the New York Jets in an ideal world wanted to walk away with Broderick Jones and or Darnell Wright at 13. From all of the things that I've been able to see, and again, I've done a ton of research on these guys. Those are the 2 guys that I think that if you're looking at this offensive tackle class, those are the 2 guys that I think that Joe Douglas would have honed in on. And if, let's say, he had his pick of all 5 tackles in the first round at 15, I still think that beyond a shadow of a doubt that the New York Jets would take Broderick Jones or Darnell Wright first. So I think that 100% makes it very likely that that's what's going to happen. Malcolm Harper, I'm still waiting for the NFL schedule to come out on May 11th, and hopefully we can get 5 primetime games. Well, we're going to have, now that we have Aaron Rodgers, I think that there's for sure a possibility that we're probably getting a Thanksgiving game against Dallas. You can put that in the books. That would be a great game there. So there's your Thursday night football game. There's a primetime game. Now then you go Uh, every team needs, I believe, they get a Thursday and a Monday, right? Like every team gets one, or no, you get one, and most of the time that's your Thursday game because everybody plays on Thursday once. So we're gonna have a Thanksgiving game, then we're probably gonna get a Monday night game, right? My expectation is that you put the 9/11 game, because I believe 9/11 this year falls on Monday, so you put, that's the game that you probably look at putting. Let me look it up real quick. Yeah, 9/11 is on Monday. The Jets and the Giants play this year. Boom, there's your Monday game. There's a primetime game. And then you just get 3 games throughout the season, which are probably going to be the Chiefs, the Eagles, and then, depending on how the Chargers are doing, probably the Chargers. Maybe even the Bills might get one of those games. That actually makes a ton of sense. So your 3 Sunday night games are probably going to be the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Eagles. And then you do the Giants game for Monday night because of 9/11. And then you do the Thursday game against Dallas on Thanksgiving. And there's your 5 primetime games. That would be my expectation. I wouldn't really say anyone won. It was fair. And if it's fair, you can either, when someone says it's fair, you can either look at it one of 2 ways, Xavier. You can either look at it both people won or both people lost. Either way, I agree with you. I think it's fair. Bro, I'm so hyped, all. I'm happy with the trade. I don't care about the future. It's about the now. I'm getting that jersey. And here's the thing, Johnny. We didn't mortgage the future. That's the best part. We gave up a pick in this year's draft and a pick in next year's draft. Everything else was pick swaps. We pick swapped in the first round. We pick swapped in the second round, in the 5th and the 6th round. Essentially, this trade came down to a 2nd round pick this year and a 2nd round pick next year. That's what it came down to. And here's, before I get these comments, what I mean a 2nd round pick next year. When you trade assets in a future trade, you essentially have to drop down the value. So that 1st round pick has the value of a 2nd round pick, because I think Aaron Rodgers is going to play 65% of the snaps anyway. So when you put all of that into consideration, the New York Jets gave the equivalent of a 2nd round pick this year and a 2nd round pick next year. That's it. It's Elijah Moore and a 2nd next year for Aaron Rodgers. I'm cool with that. I'm really cool with that. Home field advantage throughout the playoffs at MetLife is going to be amazing. Here's the thing, man. I think it's going to be very, very hard. I think it's going to be very, very hard for the New York Jets to really beat out Kansas City. That's the real team. I think we've won the AFC East at this point. Like, I think we're by far and away the favorites. Like, I'm not worried about Buffalo, Miami, or New England at this point with Aaron Rodgers. I wasn't worried about them last year, and we lost those because of the fact that we had Zach Wilson. Aaron Rodgers wins us those games. So I'm not worried about it at all. And so, yeah. I'm glad the deal is done. Any idea if Green Bay is absorbing any of the Rodgers contract? Apparently, that's what's going to be negotiated over the next couple of days. The idea, from what I understand and from what I can break down, is that both sides announced this trade so that no one can try to back out of it and really do anything. And now the conversation be like, here's what the trade is. Let's talk contract. For the sheer amount of things that were given to Green Bay, and the fact that they didn't absorb a player, and I think that that's huge. We were able to keep everybody. We didn't have to give up Bryce Huff. We didn't have to give up Corey Davis. We didn't have to give up, Jeremy Ruckert or Denzel Mims. We were able to keep everybody on the roster, which is better for us, whether you like any of these guys or not. The reality is, being able to keep all of our guys is a big deal, and that's exactly what we were able to do. So with that, you have to assume that because they didn't take something in terms of a contract back, you're going to have to assume that Green Bay is going to eat some of that contract, because they probably wanted that pick swap in the first. And so this is where I'm going to look at it and say, yeah, we probably are going to see Green Bay absorb some of that contract. Now, how much of it, I have no idea. That part of the salary cap, I'm still trying to understand when it comes to certain teams and certain situations absorbing the contract. But the other thing that I fully expect is that when Aaron Rodgers lands, he's going to restructure his contract. So, yeah, I'm cool with that. Bang, Mateo. with the super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Guys, super chats cut the line if you want to get your answer or your answer to your question. That's a great way to do it. New York Jets caved into Green Bay's demand. In my opinion, Green Bay had leverage. I don't think so. I don't think either team had leverage, and I don't think we caved into the demand either, Mateo. I was saying this earlier. I think that ultimately this walks away as a really fair deal for both teams. We didn't give up too much in this year's draft. Essentially, we paid 2 spots in the first round to go up an entire round in from the 6th to the 5th. That's the way that I look at that. That's its own trade, right? Which again, maybe the points don't match up, but like that's how I like to look at it. And then we gave up Elijah Moore straight up for Aaron Rodgers and then a pick next year. And what it breaks down to is either giving up, if you look at the points of everything, it's either giving up the 13th pick straight up or a second round pick this year and a second round pick next year, if you look at the points and how they break down. So I think that that's incredibly fair for what Aaron Rodgers is. And again, we have to see if they're going to eat any of the contract, which I think that they will. So, yeah. People are saying we will be surprised about how much Aaron Rodgers' rework deal will be. And that's the thing. We have no idea as of right now what they're going to do in regards to that contract. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to give them Aaron Rodgers, we're not going to give them that, like in the sense of like that contract. He's going to play under a different contract. Like that's just, I think that's the reality of it. So give me a second. So yeah, give me a second, guys. Pulling something up. But yeah, let's go back to the chat, see what you guys are saying in here. We have to be real here. We are just fans that have no idea how deals work. These were 2 teams with guys with over 20 years of front office experience. And it's not just that, Kiyuka Lake Jet fan. You also have to remember that it's 2 guys that have 20 years of experience and 20 years of knowing each other. Like, yeah. It's, yeah. Like, they weren't, yeah. What do you mean they demanded they didn't get a first round pick? We swapped firsts, and it's a conditional pick in 2022. The thing was they wanted an unconditional 1. And so, again, and it's a 1 in next year's draft. Like, that's it. I'm not worried about next year's draft in the sense of the first round pick, because hopefully that first round pick is going to be in the late 30s. Late 30s. It's going to be, hopefully that second round, it's like, I don't know. Again, I get what you're saying here, Bang, but like it's not considered a first round pick. That's the thing. In negotiations, any picks in the future get removed by 1 round. That's a second round pick worth of value. That's what that is. And next year's first, who cares about next year's first? If it means an AFC championship game, that's pick 28. If it's a Super Bowl, it's pick 32. And if something goes astronomically wrong, well, then that's a different conversation. But the expectation that this is where that same old Jets mentality starts to creep in, which is, oh, but something's going to go wrong, which is like, well, if that's what you believe, then I can't argue that. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing, Bang. But when you look at the value, when you talk about picks, if you have a conversation about a pick in the future, it loses 1 year. For every year it moves forward. So a first round pick this year is worth a first round pick. A first round pick next year is worth a second. A first round pick in the year after that is worth a third. Because future assets help the team in the future. And GMs don't care about that. You care on a 2-year timeline because you can lose your job. And that's that. We still have Corey Davis. Play him or get another pick for him. That's a plus. That's another great point, Hank. I would love in either situation, like if Corey Davis stayed or if we traded him away. Guys, Corey Davis has value. Some team would look at Corey Davis and be like, we'll give you a 3rd-round pick for Corey Davis. Like, somebody's going to do that for what his skill set is and the fact that he ultimately has a that former 1st-round pick, you know? That's just it. Stop, Tigo. The logic you are trying to make is silly. What logic? Which one? Like, what logic is silly? That's, if you look that up and you ask anybody, that's exactly what it is. And only giving up 1 pick in next year's draft is fine. And I don't care if it's a 1st in next year's draft. Like, the fact is that 1, it's not a conditional 1st. We weren't giving up a 1 straight up. It still gives us whatever, the conditional 2nd, blah, blah, blah. But again, it's in next year's draft. Like, I think people were honestly expecting that the New York Jets were going to walk away and fleece Green Bay. There was nothing saying that they needed to trade him to us. Both teams were desperate. Both teams were desperate. They needed to get rid of Aaron Rodgers, and we needed Aaron Rodgers. This idea that we were going to fleece Green Bay is just coming from fans that weren't, like, based in reality. And that's the fact. And like I said, this is the part where it's not. That's not real logic, Bang, because that's not how teams look at it. That's not how they break it up. That's not how they think about it. Because next year, everyone could be fired. That's not how the value breaks out. Now, if we're talking about next year, now the draft has happened, that's a different conversation. If we're talking about the day after the draft, that's a different conversation. Bang, here's the problem. We didn't have the leverage. Nobody had the leverage. This is also a fallacy. I've been saying it for forever. The Jets don't have the leverage. The Packers don't have the leverage. Honestly, Aaron Rodgers was the one who had the leverage. And expecting that a fleece job was going to happen, here's the reality, right, of the situation. Let's talk about Brian Gutekunst. Gutekunst is probably already on the hot seat. If you look at his time as a general manager for the Green Bay Packers, it can be ultimately considered as a relative failure. You had 2 back-to-back MVP years out of Aaron Rodgers, and you were unable to build a team with a Hall of Fame quarterback who is still relatively in his prime to build a team that was good enough to make a run in the playoffs. You held on to Mike McCarthy too early. You brought in LaFleur, and you were unable to win even with all of that stuff going on. And when you look at his track record in the draft, it hasn't been great. Failure to get any weapons in the 1st round, doing nothing but drafting defensive players in the 1st round, and still not having a top defense in the NFL. Again, there's a lot of things that could be considered bad stuff out of Gutekunst. He wasn't going to lose this trade, because if he loses his trade, he's fired anyway. If he doesn't make this trade, he's fired anyway. So in reality, 1, Joe Douglas wasn't going to fleece his friend. Like, again, he's going to make a deal that made sense for everybody. And then 2, like, Green Bay could have just sat on their hands and waited and waited and waited and waited, and giving up a ton of picks. And this is what I think a lot of people are talking about. Oh, why couldn't we just give them 2024 assets? The 2024 draft is much, 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 much better than the 2023 draft class. This draft class is absolutely abysmal compared to what next year's draft class is. And the fact that we're only giving up 1 pick in next year's draft and then doing a bunch of different pick swaps in this year's draft makes a ton of sense. We're not a team that has a ton of holes. We don't need all of this stuff in this year's draft. I would have rather given up assets in this year's draft and still put us in a position to go out and get good value in this year's draft, while also maintaining the fact that we're going to be able to get really good value in next year's draft. And that's the point. Like, again, is this a home run draft, or is this a home run trade for the New York Jets? No. Is this a home run trade for the Green Bay Packers? No. You're never going to win if you're a team trading away uh, you're never going to win when you're a team trading away a Hall of Fame quarterback. And that's that. As of right now, no, Bang. No. Aaron Rodgers has not yet played 65% of the snaps. And again, you're breaking down the question incorrectly. You're breaking it down into black and white, and this is not a black and white question, Bang. Whenever it comes to deals, whenever it comes to any of these situations, it's not black and white. There is a whole ton of gray. And when you negotiate, the pick matters for the value of the pick. So the argument of in 2024, will Green Bay pick in the first round? Yeah, probably. But you know what? If they're picking in the first round, that means that Aaron Rodgers has played a ton of games. We've won a ton of games, and that pick is 28-32. And if they want to have that pick, I'm not worried about it. This is the crazy one, right? They're ready to dump 2 ones and $500 million guaranteed into a guy who hasn't completed a full season. But it's just, I don't get that one. Like, that's the reality. For real. Like, this isn't a bad trade. This isn't a fleece job. No one really walked away as the winners in this trade. Like, and yeah, just be happy. We got our guy. And here's the thing, a guy that doesn't miss and who has never had the talent that we've had on this team. He has never played on a team who's offensively as good as ours. Never. The best weapon he's ever had is obviously Devontae Adams. And I'm not saying that Garrett Wilson is as good as Devontae Adams. That's not what I'm saying. Don't put that in my mouth already. But like, dude, if Aaron Rodgers plays all of next year, he played all of this year with a broken thumb. And if you would have given me broken thumb Aaron Rodgers this year, we win 13 games. 13 games, even with that offensive line. We win 13 games. Come on, guys. Come on. How have all those Jets draft pick worked out the last few drafts beside the last season? I don't think this is a fair argument, Cuca Lake Jet fan. I think that we've had some pretty good Jets fans. So, yeah, actually, yeah, Patty, the last time he had this good of a team, the last time he had a top 5 defense, no, I think they were 6th that year. Last time that he had a top 10 defense, he won a Super Bowl. Yeah. Yep. If one team assumes all the risk, that team lost. The holdup was for retirement clause. We didn't get it. JD lost. Kev, I need you to elaborate this. How did we assume all of the risk? Like the retirement card, right? Whatever you want to think about it, the retirement card wasn't real. Right? Aaron was never going to retire. The retirement card was a way to play to gain leverage in the situation. Aaron is more than likely going to play for 2 years. Right? But that's just the reality of the situation. He's due $110 million over the next 2 years. You really think that he's going to pass up on all that money? That money's guaranteed. That money's not going anywhere. Like, that's not going anywhere. So the reality is that the retirement card, the Jets don't make this trade for 1 year of Aaron Rodgers. That's the real thing. The retirement card was a play, was Aaron Rodgers being, like, if you sat here and really believed that Aaron Rodgers went into the darkness retreat, 90% retired, and came out, saw that the team was trying to sell him, and then got all on his high horse and wanted to come to the New York Jets, like, dude, now you're just believing the lie. Like, now you're just believing the lie. In the end, the New York Jets used the idea that Aaron Rodgers is only going to play for 1 year as a way to lower what the draft compensation probably could have been, right? And we assume some of the risk in 2024, but it's one pick in 2024. And like I said, if you break down the point values, you can look at it one of two ways. You're either looking at it as a second round pick in this year's draft and a second round pick in next year's draft, or as 13 overall straight up. And in reality, not having to give up 13 straight up is a big deal. We still get the 15th pick. We're still going to walk away with a tackle. We still get to keep the second round pick. And here's the thing, guys. The second round pick, that's worth something. You can trade back in the second round and recoup assets with that. I did it in a mock draft that I released a couple of hours ago. Like, that's a real option as well. So this idea that Aaron Rodgers, like, okay, I'm not going to sit here and say I guarantee Aaron Rodgers is going to play in 2024, but I feel like the only way Aaron Rodgers does not play in 2024 is if this thing crashes and burns. If the Jets, like, if this crashes and burns, that's what would need to happen. So, yeah, boom. Come on, dude. It's $110 million. He's not going to leave up $50 million. Okay, first latecomers, please repeat what the trade was. I haven't heard anything except for the pick squawk. Who got what? Okay, New York Cursor. Here's what the trade was. We are sending to the Green Bay Packers pick number 13, a 2023 second round pick, the number 42 pick, a 6th round pick, number 227, and a conditional 2024 second round pick that becomes a first if Rodgers plays 65% of the snaps in this calendar year. And then the New York Jets receive Aaron Rodgers, pick number 15, and a 2023 5th round pick, number 170. So essentially what the trade was is we swapped first round picks, we swapped a 6th for a 5th, and then we gave them a second round pick this year and a conditional second round pick next year. That's what the trade is, broken down relatively easily. So not that complicated. I like it. Makes a ton of sense for both teams. Makes everything like that. They got 42. Now, this I can't agree with, Deep Sixer. I don't know if that third year is there. That third year, I don't know. But I feel super confident that it's at least 2. It's at least 2. Doesn't mean we can't be critical of the Jets, but like separate the two and relax. At the end of the day, it's a major win. Exactly. I'm not saying that we won this trade, I don't think we did. A win would have been if it was just a second this year and a second next year. We didn't swap firsts, right? Like, that would have been a win in my book. That would have been what I would have been closer to saying is a fleece if it was straight up a second this year and a second next year. But you have to fudge with the numbers. You got to do some of the things. You got to do stuff to have the other team feel confident in the fact that they won. Now, Green Bay can go to their fan base. He can... Murphy and Gutekunst can go to the board of directors and be like, hey, you know what? We ultimately at the end walked away with the first round pick. Who cares that it's pick 32? And the Jets can say, you know what? We only gave up one asset in this year's draft, one asset in next year's draft, and we're going to be picking 32 anyway. Let's go win a Super Bowl. So, yeah. Is Green Bay absorbing any of the money? That's yet to be heard. There have been reports that contract negotiations are still happening, that the contract isn't done yet. It isn't ready. It hasn't been announced. None of that stuff. But they also have been reports that New York Jets fans will be surprised as to how much Aaron Rodgers will be willing to restructure his deal. And that bodes well. So again, we can't really put who won or lost this trade or anything like that until we see the contract situation. I will lean more towards the New York Jets kind of lost this trade if we're eating the entire contract. If the Packers eat some of this contract, I think this is a super fair deal. And if the Packers then eat some of this contract, he comes to the Jets and then he restructures his deal to be here for an extended period of time, then I think the Jets walk away as winners. I disagree, MJ Dunn. I would have preferred not swapping first-round picks. I'm not a fan of putting New England in front of the Jets at 14, and the only reason is because I feel like we need an offensive tackle in this year's draft, and I'm worried you know, I'm really worried that. So, yeah. We're getting angry Rodgers. Dude is probably going to break the single record with the Jets, and while doing that, going to the playoffs. I hope so. From your lips to God's ears. I'm on board with that. And again, I think it's a great, like, again, I think it's a great situation for everybody. The New York Jets still get to pick in the first round. We still walk away with a tackle no matter what. And then we still get to pick in the second round. And here's the thing. I think that 43 pick immediately becomes for sale. And I think that's a really good idea there. And so, yeah. Am I crazy for praying we draft Canty at 15th, hopefully in a trade down? I think so. I think you need to walk away with an offensive lineman, man. The thing that you have to look at is the 3 offensive linemen that we have on the roster right now. 4, I forgot, we signed Cedric Ogbeyi. But of the 3 guys who were legitimately starters in last year's offensive line, let's go 4, right? Let's add Elijah Vera Tucker into this. Of the 4 guys that played at the offensive tackle position last year, Dwayne Brown, Mekhi Becton, Elijah Vera Tucker, and Max Mitchell, all 4 of those guys missed a combined 40 games last year. And while I totally believe in Mekhi Becton to revitalize his career, he's looking slim, he's looking good, his cardio's looking great. Like, he looks the best I've ever seen Mekhi Becton, even going back to his college days. I still worry about that knee. I still have that concern. Dwayne Brown, whether we like it or not, is 39. And while he doesn't have an injury history, I have a torn rotator cuff, and I know how hard that is. Recovering from surgery and then going to play out there is a thing. And Max Mitchell is going to be dealing with the blood clots for the rest of his life. And that's a serious medical condition. Now, does that mean that he can't play football? No. Apparently, he's healthy and he can do all that stuff, and that's great. And Elijah Vera Tucker should be playing at guard. So, look, I love Kalijah Cansey, don't get me wrong, but I feel like you have to walk away with an offensive tackle in this draft. And that's why if we're going to be trading out of a pick, I think it is much more likely that the New York Jets trade out of 43 than it is that we trade out of 15. But that's just me. But I would not be mad if all 5 of the tackles are gone by 15. I would not be mad with either straight up just taking Cansey at 15 or trading back, accumulating more assets, and maybe getting a DeJuan Jones in the bottom of the first, or, forgetting DeJuan Jones in the bottom of the first, getting somebody else in the bottom of the first, and then getting a Blake Freeland, a Matthew Bergeron, or something along those lines, and having them really compete for that offensive tackle. But the fall off from the top 5 guys to the guys in the next tier of offensive tackle, I think is pretty huge. And that's why I feel like you need to walk away with a tackle at 15. Abby, what's up? Let's go, Jets. Love it. But for real, do you see JD move back and get some more picks to get another second? Nah, I think at this point you're happy with 43. What you're trying to recuperate is a 3rd round pick. And you can do that by moving back in the 2nd round. If you move back 10 spots in the 2nd round, if you go from 43 to 53, I think that there are going to be players that the New York Jets have met with and that they're big fans of are still going to be on the board there. And they're still going to be able to get their guy. So, yeah, I think that, again, if you want to see this situation played out, Johnny, I dropped this right when, it was dumb of me, but right when Ryan of Jets Talk 24/7 dropped his, started going live, I had a full 7-round mock draft where I did exactly that, and it was a fully predicting what I think is actually going to happen. We could still trade Corey Davis for a 3rd or a 4th rounder too. Absolutely, man. I said this earlier, and Would I like to keep Corey Davis? Absolutely, right? Like, and in my mock draft, I think we kept I kept Corey Davis in my mind. And if we don't have to take a wide receiver in the draft and we can keep like a really deep room in that wide receiver class, I want to give Aaron Rodgers as many weapons as possible. Just really give him the best wide receiver room he's ever had in terms of depth. We're never going to be able to, maybe in a couple of years, Garrett Wilson can be as good as Devontae Adams. But right now, to say that he's as good as Devontae Adams when he was in Green Bay, I think is just disingenuous. It's a little bit of a homer take, but this is kind of an ideal situation. We're looking at being 4 or 5 deep at the wide receiver position. And I mean, legitimately 4 or 5 deep. I love that aspect of this trade. Guys, give me a second. I'm going to go get my food. Enjoy each other's company in the chat. Thank you. Food has been delivered. Love it. And so, again, this gives us an opportunity to really, really compete really, really hard in the short term by keeping all of these guys. And so, again, I think the guy that's most likely to lose his job at this point is Jordan Whitehead. And that's just because his role and his position has kind of become expendable, and we can save a ton of money. Now, this isn't me saying that I want him gone, right? I mean, I don't care if he stays or if he goes or anything like that. But in the grand scheme of things, Carl Lawson, I think, stays. Corey Davis, I think, stays. And you know what? I think Carl Lawson is going to get extended here in the coming weeks. I think that really. I think you're going to see him get extended, and then you're going to see his cap hit get lowered. So we're probably going to turn his 1 year, I think it's like 15. Let me pull up over the cap because I'm not sure. Over the cap. Let's look at the Jets cap. Technically, we're in the negative right now because we have Aaron Rodgers. And so the way that I look at it, Carl Lawson is almost a $16 million cap hit. The way that I would look at it is if you can extend him, right? If you look at Carl Lawson, you can extend him, give him the same level of money and lower his cap hit in year 1. So there's that. I'm expecting a Quinnen Williams deal is going to come soon. I think we're going to lower his cap hit this year because Quinnen Williams is like a $9.5 million cap hit. I expect that to drop to about $7 million after we give him his big contract. Same thing with Carl Lawson. He's a $15 million cap hit. I think we extend him, and we're probably going to lower his cap hit from 15 probably to around that $7, $8, $9 million in year 1. And I would not be surprised if when the time comes we can finally restructure CJ that we extend CJ Mosley and give him a lower number as well. So again, a ton of things that we can do. A ton of things. And yeah, Davis is a phenomenal blocking wide receiver when he's healthy. Okay, Kev beat me to it. Davis can't block if he's hurt, which is likely. The good thing, Kev, is that Corey Davis isn't going to be asked to be wide receiver 1 or let alone wide receiver 2 in this system. He is at most wide receiver 3, and that should, and remember the concerns that everyone, or at least I had with Quan Alexander, that the guy hadn't had a fully healthy season or anything like that? That makes a ton of sense, right? Well, what did the New York Jets do to alleviate that? Well, they only gave him 39, I think is what the number came out to be if you remove the 2 games where he started. He only played 39% of the snaps. The one thing I've realized, Kev, is that if you aren't on the field that often, you can't get hurt. And so that's what the New York Jets did with Quan Alexander, and that's how we were able to keep Quan Alexander. So, yeah. We can't extend Lawson when Quinnen Williams has been waiting, and Quinnen Williams has to wait until 2024 if he prioritizes Super Bowl. What do you mean? Why can't we do one and the other? We can do both. There's nothing stopping us from extending Lawson and Quinnen Williams. So I want you to elaborate this a little bit because I want to, before I comment on it, I want to really understand what you're saying. Specifically with that the second part of that question, and Quinnen Williams has to wait till 2024 if he prioritizes Super Bowl. Are you saying in this situation, Kev, that if he waits to get paid until next year, he'll get paid more money because we would have won a Super Bowl? Is that what you're trying to say? That's a risk. That's a big risk from Quinnen Williams if he decides that. I don't hate it. You guys got A-Rod for free? I wouldn't say that. We gave up some stuff to get him. I'm not super happy with the compensation, but I'm not mad at it either. I am neutrally optimistic to see what happens with the contract. That's the best way for me to describe what happens or how I am currently feeling about the trade compensation. I am neutrally optimistic that, there's still opportunity for us to win this. Right? For free? I don't know about all that. Oh, no. Yeah, but we can do all of that, Kev. Remember that CJ Mosley right now is carrying a $21 million dead cap hit, and he's not going to carry that dead cap hit. Remember that Carl Lawson is also carrying a $16 million cap hit, and we're not going to carry that cap hit. And Quinnen Williams is carrying a $9 million cap hit, and we're not going to carry that cap hit. And when you look at the Aaron Rodgers situation, there are ways for us to adjust the Aaron Rodgers contract with the New York Jets and to lower his contract number in this year, like his cap number in this year. There are ways for us to do things to get cap space in this year and keep all of our guys. Like, the more I learn about the cap, let me highlight your comment because I'm just answering it. The more I understand and realize how the cap works and the flexibilities that teams have when it comes to the cap, it really has opened my eyes into how, what the New York Jets can do and why Jets fans were in a panic, and so was I, honestly, when I looked at the cap situation. And the reality is, after talking with Jason from Over the Cap, we have a ton of flexibility. We can do a lot of really good things in regards to the cap that'll free up a ton of space. So, yeah. With a trade back, we will be already a lot of good players in round 2 and 3. I don't want to trade back in round 1. At all. I want the tackle in round 1. Now, if you're talking about trading back in round 2, I'm cool with that. I'm super cool with that. I would do that. But I don't want to trade back in round 1. Hell, I didn't even want to do the pick swap in round 1. So, yeah. There's that. You can't, this tackle class falls off so hard. And there are 9 teams in the top 20 that could use offensive line help. And there are some teams that are going to grade Peter Skoronski as a guard. There are some teams that are going to grade Paris Johnson as a guard. And when you're looking at that, there are some teams that are going to grade Darnell Wright as a right tackle only. It's hard to predict accurately what's going to happen in that situation. For real, right? Again, I'm not mad at the trade. We got Aaron. I'm going to buy the jersey, and he's going to wear 8, and it's going to be weird, and it's going to be awesome. Right? It's going to be great, because I don't think he's going to wear 12. I don't think he's going to accept it. I think he's going to respect New York and respect Namath and all of that. I think he wears 8, and I think it's going to be great. You think so? Patty Grimes is our resident Lions fans. That's interesting, Patty. I didn't think they would take an offensive lineman at 8. 18, I'm sorry. I think 100% what the deal would have... I thought they were going to go corner at 6, or defensive line at 6, and then corner at 18 or defensive lineman at 18. Is that confirmed? Can anyone confirm this? Is this a thing? Is that happening? Is this a thing? Can I get another source here? Not that I don't trust you, Patty. I just trust but verify. You know how it is? Okay. To talk about this. One, we didn't have an opportunity to get Lawrence, right? Because he went number 1 overall. And Fields hasn't been better than Zach. Fields just runs around more than Zach, but he hasn't accomplished anything with his arm. This is the make or break year for Fields. And then we can see that. But everybody had Zach Wilson as the consensus number 2 pick. 28 NFL GMs were polled, and they all had him as the number 2 pick. Come on, guys. Come on. Be real here. Where's this Justin Fields love coming from? There are still people arguing that the Bears should have taken Bryce Young in this year's draft, that trading out was a mistake. Come on. Come on. Be real here. Don't bring up Fields in this chat. Come on. Come on. Mazi Smith in round 2. Nah. Mazi Smith doesn't fit the mold of what the Jets want at a defensive tackle. He's a great player, but he grades out more as a traditional nose tackle, and that's not what the Jets want. Jets want a 3-tech. Think of a guy who's like 6'3", 290. That's what the Jets want. Wilson played in a joke conference? Somebody can get your guy. Somebody can get their mans. Come on. Somebody will come get their mans. Yeah, Fields can't throw. It's from a Lions fan. It's not even me saying that. Come on. I'm not saying that Wilson has been spectacular, but saying that Fields has been better than Wilson is just subjectively not true yet. Keanu Benton in round 2. I don't think we go defensive tackle in round 2, Jose. If I'm being honest, I think we're going to go linebacker, which leads to Johnny Jimenez. I think we're going to go linebacker in round 2. I think that we're probably looking at guys like Jack Campbell, Dion Henley, and if it's not going to go linebacker, then we're going to go edge in round 2. The edge class is really, really good. So, like, Tuli Tuipulotu, all of those things. So, yeah. All right, go get the stats. Felix. Is it Felix? But also get the wins. Go get the wins. I never said he wasn't a better athlete. Never said that, Sal. That was the first thing I said. The only thing that he does better than Zach Wilson is he runs around a lot. That's literally like the second thing I said. It's like the second thing I said. Come on. What is total yards with him running around all the time? Like, come on. I'm not talking about Fields. I'm not talking about Fields. Fields is not the answer in Chicago. And I think that when people realize after this year, they're gonna surround him with all of the talent in the world. And we're gonna have the same conversations with Fields and not at this high of a level that people are having about Lamar Jackson and that people had about Jalen Hurts. Now, Jalen Hurts is the only one of the three that actually did something about it and developed his throwing ability and now like took his team to a Super Bowl. But come on. Who'd Zach throw to again? Besides this year, yeah, things fell apart this year, but so did the offensive line. Who was Zach throwing to? A broken down Corey Davis? A Braxton Berrios? He threw to Corey Davis for like 3 games, and then he got hurt, and then was throwing to a Denzel Mims, who was like a 90 pounds light, so he couldn't get gamed. So he's throwing to Braxton Berrios and Jeff Smith. Come on, dude. We had no offensive line, no nothing. The same excuses that you can come up with for Fields, you can come up with for Zach Wilson. Now, this year, I can 100% say, yeah, like he mentally fell apart. I'm not coming up with that, defending that aspect of it. But, come on, dude. Claypool's not a joke. They went and traded for him. They got DJ Moore. Like, let's see. We'll see this year. But, yeah. We'll see this year. And that's it. I'm done talking about Justin Fields. He's not on this team. I don't care about him. I don't believe in Justin Fields. He hasn't fixed his throwing motion, and it's going to cost him in the NFL level. And look, if he proves me wrong, great. He proves me wrong. But don't come to this channel with Fields over Zach stuff, because that ain't going to fly. Fields was barely a first-round grade in my book. With that throwing motion and his processing speed, barely a first-round grade. And I think Chicago messed up by trading up. They got desperate. They were trying to save their jobs, and it didn't work. They all got fired anyway. The Bears are going for Caleb Williams next year anyway, and so, yeah. Rodgers is a Jets. Leaf playing tonight? Absolutely, New York Jets fan. Love it. If Stroud slips like Field did, could you have been tempted to trade up for him instead of a Rodgers trade? No. We can't get rid of Zach's contract, and no, because the cost to trade up for a quarterback, it would have been much more value, Kev. It would have been a lot of value to move up because he doesn't clear 7 or 8, so you're probably looking at getting up to 6 with the Lions if you really wanted Stroud. And that's too rich for my blood. I wanted Rodgers. So, yeah. Felix, it's a fact, dude. The guy was wildly average last year, and people raved and loved him because he was just running around a bunch. That's it. Like, he hasn't done anything to earn all of the love that he's gotten. Zach has done a ton of things to earn all the hate that he's gotten. Absolutely. But Justin Fields doesn't deserve all the love that he's getting. He's done absolutely nothing to do it. And part of that is because the Chicago Bears are a dumpster fire. But, like, I'll admit it. This is a little bit of my pre-draft bias. I didn't like Justin Fields at all. Like, at all. I didn't have a first-round grade on him. So, guys, I'm going to end the stream there. I'm hungry. My food looks delicious. The Leafs are playing. And I got a ton of homework to do. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. Greatly going to appreciate it. And, yeah. Let me know what you guys think in the comments if you're watching this after the fact. What do you think of the trade? What do you think of everything? But yeah. Yeah, this makes a ton of sense, Mitch. I would expect that they want... I don't think that they trade out, though. I don't think Green Bay is going to trade out. But, yeah. Alrighty, guys. You guys have a good night. I'm excited. We're finally going to see a good quarterback in New York Jets land. Get excited, guys. Be happy for one day. Just one day. Just be happy.